The metallic corridor of the Galactic Council station hummed with an eerie silence as Ambassador Do-hyun adjusted his formal attire. The massive chamber ahead would host humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. Through the transparent walls, he could see various alien species moving about in their environmental suits, their bodies protected from what they considered the station's toxic atmosphere. "They're staring at us like we're some kind of circus attraction," whispered Lena, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The Earth delegation, consisting of 5 members, stood out starkly against the sea of protective suits and sealed chambers. The main doors slid open with a soft hiss. The council chamber was a marvel of engineering, with separate atmospheric chambers for each species. Crystal-clear barriers separated different sections, each filled with their preferred noble gases. The human delegation walked confidently into the oxygen-rich central platform, drawing gasps and murmurs from the assembled representatives. High Counselor Kita, a tall, silvery being with 4 arms, observed them through specialized viewing equipment. His environmental chamber glowed with a soft purple hue, filled with xenon gas. "So these are the creatures who claim to breathe poison." His translated voice echoed through the chamber. Snickers and translated laughs followed his statement. Do-hyun stepped forward, his voice steady. "Honorable Council, we come as representatives of Earth, seeking peaceful relations and technological exchange." He gestured to his colleagues, standing unprotected in what the aliens considered a lethal environment. "As you can see, what you call poison is our life force." A representative from the Centauri system, their body obscured by swirling mists in their chamber, spoke up. "How do primitive beings survive in such corrosive conditions? Your planet's atmosphere should have destroyed any chance of advanced life." Lena moved to stand beside Do-hyun. "With respect, our biology evolved alongside oxygen. It's not just that we tolerate it, we require it to live. Our cells use it to generate energy." She pulled up holographic displays showing human cellular structure, which caused another wave of muttering among the council members. Keita raised 2 of his 4 hands, silencing the chamber. "Fascinating, in a primitive way. Yet you claim to have achieved faster than light travel in such conditions. Perhaps you merely stumbled upon ancient technology you don't truly understand." The insult was clear, but Do-hyun maintained his diplomatic composure. "We developed our technology independently, High Counselor. Our ships use oxygen-based life support systems, which we found highly efficient." A smaller alien, floating in a neon green chamber, made a sound that the translators interpreted as laughter. "Oxygen-based systems. Next, they'll tell us they drink hydrogen dioxide for sustenance." "Actually," Lena interjected, "we do. You know it as water. It's essential for our survival." This revelation caused even more commotion in the chamber. Kita leaned forward in his chamber, multiple eyes focusing on the human delegation. "You expect us to believe that you not only survive in oxygen, but also consume one of the most corrosive compounds known to spacefaring species. Perhaps we should reconsider this diplomatic exchange. Such biological recklessness suggests a concerning lack of evolutionary refinement." The human delegation remained steadfast as waves of dismissive comments washed over them. Do-hyun knew this reaction was expected. Earth's scientists had predicted the galactic community's response to human biology would be one of disbelief and superiority. "High Counselor," Do-hyun spoke again, his voice carrying authority despite the mockery. "We understand our biology seems strange to you. But consider this. While you require complex environmental suits to move through most of the galaxy, we can adapt to a wide range of conditions naturally. Perhaps this isn't primitive, but rather advanced in a way you haven't considered." His words brought a momentary pause to the chamber. Kite's translated expression showed what might have been a flicker of consideration before being replaced by diplomatic neutrality. "Very well, Earth delegation. You may present your credentials and petition for observer status, but do not expect special treatment because of your unique biological quirks." As the formal proceedings began, Do-hyun and Lena exchanged knowing glances. The road ahead would be challenging, but they had achieved their first goal, making the galaxy notice humanity, even if that notice came with dismissal and derision. Little did the Council know that this very trait they mocked would soon prove to be humanity's greatest advantage in the cosmic arena. Dr. Jai-1 carefully adjusted her microscope in the pristine laboratory aboard the Galactic Research Station. The soft hum of equipment filled the air as she studied the human blood sample glowing under the advanced imaging system. Her team had spent months analyzing human DNA, fascinated by its unique properties that defied conventional galactic biology. Dr. Ta-Min burst into the lab, his eyes wide with excitement. Jai-1, you need to see this. He quickly pulled up a holographic display showing cellular activity. These mitochondrial structures, they're not just tolerating oxygen. They're actively using it in ways we've never seen before. The two scientists hunched over the display, watching as human cells efficiently processed oxygen in a complex dance of chemical reactions. What other species considered toxic waste was being transformed into pure energy through an elegant biological process. Senior researcher Hanbin observed from his sealed chamber, his earlier skepticism giving way to genuine curiosity. Through the chamber's communication system, his translated voice carried a note of wonder. Impossible. These cells should be destroying themselves, yet they're thriving. Jai-1 pointed to a particular sequence in the DNA display. Look here. The cellular protection mechanisms are built directly into their genetic code. It's not just adaptation. It's fundamental to their entire biology. Word of their discoveries spread quickly through the station. Soon, their laboratory became crowded with researchers from various species, all watching through their protective barriers as the human scientists worked freely in the oxygen-rich environment. Ta-Min's analysis revealed something even more startling. The oxygen processing isn't just efficient, it's optimized. These cells produce more energy than any noble gas-based system we've studied. He brought up comparative data showing how human cellular energy production outperformed other known biological systems. Hanbin, who had once written a scathing dismissal of human biology in the Galactic Scientific Journal, now found himself revising his position. The complexity is remarkable. Their entire evolutionary path must have been different from ours. As the team delved deeper, they uncovered layer after layer of sophisticated biological mechanisms. The human immune system showed incredible adaptability, capable of functioning in various atmospheric conditions. Their cellular repair systems were robust, easily handling what other species considered fatal oxidative damage. Look at this, Jai-1 called out one day, pointing to a new discovery. Their DNA includes repair sequences specifically designed to counter oxygen-related damage. It's as if their entire genome evolved expecting to use what we consider poison. The laboratory became a hub of intense scientific activity. Researchers from across the galaxy sent requests to study human biology. What had started as a curious investigation into a primitive species had become the most significant biological research project in recent galactic history. During one crucial experiment, Ta-Min made an observation that changed everything. These cellular structures don't just use oxygen, they depend on it. Remove the oxygen, and the entire system begins to shut down. It's not just tolerance, it's a requirement for their survival. This revelation sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Species that had evolved to avoid oxygen at all costs now had to reckon with the fact that humans had not only mastered its use, but had made it essential to their existence. Hanbin, now fully converted from skeptic to advocate, began drafting a new paper. Their biology isn't primitive, it's revolutionary. They've turned what we considered a universal poison into a source of power. As news of their discoveries spread, the political implications became clear. Human biology wasn't just different, it was advantageous in ways that would reshape galactic power dynamics. Species that had looked down on humans now faced the reality that these primitive beings possessed biological capabilities they could only dream of achieving. Jai-1 and her team continued their research, knowing that each discovery was changing the galaxy's understanding of life itself. What had begun as a simple study of human DNA had evolved into something far more significant. The revelation that humanity's supposed weakness was actually its greatest strength. The laboratory's findings would soon reach the Galactic Council, where the same representatives who had laughed at human biology would be forced to reconsider their assumptions. In the sterile confines of the research station, humanity's true potential was finally being understood, one cell at a time. The warning sirens blared through the Centauri hub's corridors as red emergency lights cast an eerie glow across the panicked faces of the station's crew. Station Director Yun-A's hands flew across the control panels, her eyes widening as she read the catastrophic system failure reports. Noble gas containment failing in sectors 3 through 7. The automated system's voice echoed through the command center. Oxygen backup systems engaging. Warning. Toxic atmosphere imminent. Yun-A's voice cut through the chaos over the station-wide communication system. This is Director Yun-A. All personnel, immediate evacuation. This is not a drill. I repeat, immediate evacuation. Security Chief Minho stood at his post, watching in horror as the environmental readings spiraled into deadly territory. The noble gases that most species required for survival were rapidly being replaced by oxygen from the backup life support systems, a fail-safe that had now become a death sentence. Director Minho called out, "Engineering teams are abandoning their posts. We're losing control of crucial systems." Through the security feeds, he watched as crew members rushed to their escape pods, their environmental suits barely protecting them from the increasing oxygen levels. The station's massive structure groaned as pressure differentials built up between sections. Critical systems, normally maintained by a crew of over 1,000, began shutting down one by one. Warning lights flashed across every control panel in the command center. Main reactor cooling system requires immediate maintenance, the computer announced. Warning, reactor breach imminent without intervention. Yuna slammed her fist on the communication panel. Engineering Team Alpha, report to the reactor core immediately. Her only response was static. The engineering teams had already evacuated, their survival instincts overriding their duty. Minho watched the security feeds as the last of his officers fled their posts. Director, we've lost security coverage in the lower decks. The oxygen levels are making it impossible for anyone to remain in their sections. The station's superstructure creaked ominously. Without proper maintenance, the delicate balance of pressures and temperatures that kept the massive facility functioning was beginning to unravel. How long until complete system failure? Yuna asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The computer's response was immediate and chilling. Complete station failure projected in 4 hours without maintenance intervention. Reactor breach in 6 hours. Current oxygen levels lethal to all registered species aboard. Minho checked the evacuation numbers scrolling across his screen. 87% of crew evacuated. Remaining personnel are either trapped or... He didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew that some crew members hadn't made it to their environmental suits in time. Yuna's fingers danced across the emergency protocols panel, sending distress signals on all frequencies. But the nearest response team is 12 hours away. She looked at the reactor readings with growing dread. We won't last that long. The command center's noble gas atmosphere began to thin as oxygen seeped through the failing environmental systems. Minho could feel his environmental suit straining to compensate. Director, we need to evacuate the command center, he urged, seeing Yun-A's suit struggling with the increasing oxygen levels. We can't maintain control much longer. Yuna nodded grimly, initiating the final evacuation protocols. Computer, transfer all command functions to automated systems. Begin emergency shutdown procedures. As they made their way to the emergency pods, they passed through corridors filled with the oxygen that their bodies considered poison. Through the viewport, they could see dozens of escape pods streaming away from the dying station. The Centauri hub was supposed to be the jewel of this sector, Minho said bitterly as they reached the evacuation bay. 3 years of construction, the most advanced noble gas processing systems in the galaxy, and now it's going to become a trillion-credit wreck. Yuna finished, helping him into an escape pod. Unless someone can survive long enough in that oxygen soup to save it. As their pods launched into space, they watched the massive station slowly beginning to fail. Its lights flickered as systems shut down one by one, and slight distortions in its structure were already visible as internal pressures built up unchecked. The last thing they saw before their pods turned toward the nearest safe harbor was the emergency broadcast repeating endlessly into space. Mayday, Mayday. This is Centauri Hub. Station-wide noble gas failure. Oxygen contamination at lethal levels. Immediate assistance required. Any vessels capable of operating in oxygen environments, please respond. General Sung Min stood before the Galactic Defense Council, his military uniform crisp as he prepared to deliver the report that would reshape galactic warfare forever. The council chamber was filled with military leaders from various species, all protected in their noble gas chambers as they awaited his presentation. Honorable Council, Sung Min began, his voice steady. Our recent analysis of human biological capabilities has revealed something extraordinary. He activated a holographic display showing combat simulations. Every major species in the galaxy has developed weapons based on oxygen dispersal. These weapons are now obsolete against one species, humans. Admiral Haijin, seated in the front row, pulled up additional tactical data on her console. Our forces can operate in oxygen-rich environments indefinitely. No protective gear, no environmental suits, no limitations. The assembled military leaders murmured in their chambers as the implications became clear. The holographic display showed footage from recent space station incidents where humans had worked effortlessly in oxygen-flooded environments. Consider this, Sung Min continued. While your forces require complex environmental protection, human soldiers can move freely through any oxygen-contaminated area. A high-ranking military officer from the Centauri system interrupted. But surely their equipment would still corrode in oxygen-rich environments. His translated voice carried a note of desperate hope. Haijin stood up, addressing this concern. Human engineering has evolved alongside our biology. Our equipment is designed to function in oxygen. In fact, many of our systems require it. She displayed schematics of human spacecraft and weapons, all built to embrace rather than avoid oxygen. The implications hit the Council like a shockwave. Standard military doctrine across the galaxy relied heavily on oxygen-based attacks to breach enemy vessels and disable life support systems. Against humans, these tactics were useless. But it goes beyond mere immunity. Sung Min emphasized, showing new tactical simulations. Human forces can exploit oxygen leaks in enemy vessels. Where your troops must retreat, ours can advance. Where your ships must abandon contaminated sectors, ours can push forward. The Council watched in stunned silence as simulation after simulation showed human forces turning conventional warfare doctrine on its head. Environmental hazards that would stop any other species cold were nothing but opportunities for human troops. Admiral Haijin brought up the statistics from recent crisis response missions. Human teams have consistently demonstrated the ability to operate in compromised environments for extended periods. No other species can match this capability. A military strategist from the Outer Rim spoke up, their voice trembling through the translator. This changes everything. Our entire defensive doctrine is based on environmental warfare. Against humans, it's worthless. Sung Min nodded grimly. Exactly. But consider the possibilities of alliance. He brought up new strategic projections. Human forces could serve as rapid response teams, operating in conditions no other species can handle. We could protect vital infrastructure, respond to environmental disasters, and conduct rescue operations in toxic conditions. The council chamber erupted in discussion as military leaders realized the full implications. The same biological trait they had mocked now made humans the perfect shock troops, emergency responders, and space combat specialists. Admiral Haijin delivered the final blow to their prejudices. The recent Centauri Hub incident proved that a small human team can accomplish what would require entire battalions of environmental suit-equipped forces, and they can do it faster, more efficiently, and with far less risk. The strategic reality was undeniable. Humans weren't just immune to standard weapons. They were ideally suited for the kind of warfare that dominated space conflicts. Their primitive biology had suddenly become the most advanced military asset in the galaxy. As the presentation concluded, the Council's attitude had shifted dramatically. The species that had once laughed at oxygen-breathing humans now saw them as invaluable potential allies. Military treaties and defense pacts were already being drafted in their chambers. General Sungmin's final words resonated through the council chamber. The species you once mocked for breathing poison are now your best defense against it. The question is no longer whether humans are worthy allies, but whether we will choose to be yours. The laughter had stopped. In its place was a new respect, tinged with fear, as the galaxy's military powers realized that humanity's greatest weakness was actually its most formidable strength. The once sterile halls of the Galactic Council had transformed. Where environmental barriers once divided species, new hybrid chambers allowed for closer interaction. Ambassador Du-hyun walked through these halls, remembering how just months ago, humans had been mocked in these very corridors. Cultural attaché Mi-rae organized the first mixed-species cultural festival, featuring both oxygen and noble gas environments. Alien children pressed their faces against protective barriers, watching in fascination as human children played freely in what their parents had always called poison. It's remarkable how quickly perceptions can change, Mi-rae said to Du-hyun as they observed the festival. Just a year ago, they wouldn't let their children near us. Now they're asking about student exchange programs. Research Director Jae-hee's Joint Biological Research Facility became the symbol of this new era. The massive complex featured interconnected chambers where scientists from all species could work side by side, separated only by necessary environmental barriers. The facility's design itself was revolutionary. Transparent walls and advanced communication systems made collaboration seamless. We're learning as much from them as they are from us, Jae-hee explained during a facility tour. Their noble gas biology has opened new perspectives on human genetics we never considered before. The cultural exchange went beyond simple tolerance. Alien artists began incorporating oxygen themes into their works, creating sculptures that celebrated the duality of their respiratory differences. Human fashion designers developed clothing lines that complemented environmental suits, turning necessity into style. Du-hyun's diplomatic achievements culminated in the historic Breadth of Understanding Accord. The agreement established protocols for mixed-species colonies, joint emergency response teams, and educational exchange programs. More importantly, it officially recognized oxygen-breathing capability as an evolutionary advantage rather than a primitive trait. Mi-rae's cultural integration programs flourished. She established translation centers that went beyond converting words. They helped species understand each other's body language, environmental needs, and social cues. Mixed-species restaurants became popular, with separate atmospheric chambers allowing families to dine together while breathing their preferred gases. The key was getting them to see our differences as strengths, Mi-rae explained during a council meeting. Now they understand that diversity in biology leads to resilience in civilization. Jae-hee's research facility made breakthrough after breakthrough. They developed new environmental suit technologies, more efficient life support systems, and even began exploring ways to temporarily modify human biology for noble gas environments. Each discovery brought the species closer together. The education system underwent a complete overhaul. Schools now taught both oxygen and noble gas biology as equal evolutionary paths. Young aliens learned about Earth's oxygen-rich environment with fascination rather than fear. Human children studied noble gas adaptation with respect rather than superiority. Du-hyun's proudest moment came during the opening of the first mixed-species university. Students from across the galaxy would study together, their different biological needs accommodated by advanced environmental systems. This, he declared, is how we build a truly united galaxy. The cultural shift reached even the most conservative corners of galactic society. Species that had once refused to trade with oxygen breathers now sought human partners eagerly. The term oxygen breather itself transformed from an insult to a mark of distinction. Ray organized the first Galactic Olympics where all species could compete together. Special events tested abilities unique to each biology, celebrating their differences rather than hiding them. The games became a symbol of how far they had come. As the years passed, the changes became permanent. New generations grew up seeing mixed species cooperation as normal. The barriers between oxygen and noble gas breathers became purely physical rather than social or cultural. This cultural revolution spread beyond the central worlds to the farthest reaches of explored space. New colonies were built with mixed environments by default. Trading posts featured both atmospheric types as standard. The galaxy had truly become a place where all could breathe freely, each in their own way. Professor Junho stood before the gleaming hybrid environmental system, the culmination of 5 years of intensive research and development. The massive installation hummed softly in the central chamber of the new Galactic Research Center, its transparent walls revealing the complex network of atmospheric processors within. Dr. Hayden checked the readings one final time before the official demonstration. All systems are operating at peak efficiency. The oxygen noble gas barrier is stable at the molecular level. Engineer Kehoe nodded in agreement, his fingers dancing across the control panel as he made final adjustments. The observation gallery was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. Unlike the segregated chambers of the past, this new facility allowed all species to gather in close proximity, protected by nearly invisible atmospheric fields that maintained their preferred breathing environments. Today marks the beginning of true coexistence, Junho announced to the assembled crowd. This system doesn't just separate our atmospheres, it creates a seamless interface between them. He demonstrated by walking through one of the atmospheric barriers, the field adjusting instantly to maintain both environments without disruption. The technology was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of thick walls and airlocks, the hybrid system used controlled energy fields to maintain distinct atmospheric zones while allowing easy passage between them. The fields automatically adjusted to each species' biological needs, creating safe breathing spaces without physical barriers. Hayun stepped forward to explain the technical details. The system learns and adapts to individual biology. It can maintain thousands of different atmospheric combinations simultaneously, all while using less energy than traditional environmental systems. Kehoe demonstrated the emergency protocols, intentionally introducing system failures that would have been catastrophic in older facilities. The hybrid system responded instantly, redistributing resources and maintaining safe environments without interruption. The implications reached far beyond simple convenience. Space stations could now be built without separate sections for different species. Ships could carry mixed crews without complex life support systems. Even planetary colonies could establish mixed communities where all species could live and work together comfortably. Remember when they laughed at us for breathing oxygen? Junho asked his team quietly during a break in the demonstrations. Now they're applauding us for solving one of the galaxy's oldest problems. The success of the hybrid system sparked a construction boom across the galaxy. Older facilities were retrofitted, new stations were built, and even personal environmental suits began incorporating the technology. The physical barriers that had long divided species were literally dissolving into thin air. Political summits transformed from sterile, separated affairs into dynamic meetings where representatives could interact naturally. The Galactic Council Chamber, once a symbol of division with its separate atmospheric chambers, became a model of integration with the new system. Education changed dramatically as well. Students of different species could now share classrooms, laboratories, and social spaces. The technology that made this possible became so commonplace that younger generations could hardly imagine a time when species had to remain physically separated. 5 years after the system's introduction, its impact was evident everywhere. Mixed species communities flourished. Joint scientific research accelerated as teams could work side by side without barriers. Cultural exchange reached new heights as species could share spaces and experiences like never before. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The species once mocked for their primitive oxygen breathing had created the technology that united the galaxy. The same council chamber that had once echoed with derisive laughter now hosted the most important diplomatic summits in history, its atmosphere shared by all. As Jun-Ho watched young aliens and humans playing together in a park equipped with a hybrid system, he smiled. The galaxy had entered a new era, not just of tolerance or acceptance, but of true integration. The barriers between species had quite literally disappeared, replaced by something far more powerful: understanding.